We're sharing something here that's very simple, very straightforward, very direct. But due to a lifetime of habit, it's missed. What's the habit? The habit is pretending to be a me. And when you're pretending to be a me can have a whole load of problems. And we call that samsara, or suffering. Some of you would be familiar with the term samsara, the Sanskrit word that means the cycle of birth and rebirth, but without its esoteric meaning of birth and reincarnation. It can just be pointing towards suffering. The seemingly endless suffering. Pleasure, pain, pleasure, pain, pleasure, pain. Ah, I've got it all figured out. I've figured it out now. I feel great. This is brilliant. Oh, it's gone. It's disappeared. I'm back to where I was again. I'm confused. I'm not sure what to do. This is samsara. This is the cycle of birth and death. In the Upanishads, they say the person who's ignorant goes from death to death. This is telling us that the suffering just continues. And I think it's in the Ashtavakra Gita, one of these other Sanskrit texts that I like. I like these Sanskrit texts. It says, you've tried over countless lives, over countless lifetimes, you've tried to figure this out. You've tried to make yourself happy. You've tried to fulfill yourself through money, through pleasure, through security, through sex, through status, through marriage, through children, through relationships, through whatever it is, entertainment, whatever. And you have failed. Talk about kicking a guy when he's down. You turn to the holy texts for solace, and they tell you, look, you're a failure. You tried all these different things. You've meditated. See, now you've done the spiritual stuff as well. You've done the worldly stuff, and the spiritual stuff you've also failed. You've done the meditation. You've seen all the teachers. You've read all the books. You've traveled all the way around the world, and you're yet to discover there's no place like home. Corny, eh? That was a bit corny. So this is about coming home. And what's easier than coming home? Especially when the home we're talking about, you can never leave, right? You can never leave home, this home we're talking about, because it's you, and you can't leave yourself. And you don't need anybody to tell you how to get home, because it's you. And yet these meetings have value, reminding you that you're already home, and by illuminating the way and the ways in which you prevent yourself realizing you're home. And at the same time, not creating a new trap for you guys, hopefully, in which you're trying to get somewhere else, which is very easy to do. It's very easy for a seeker to hear anything that's being said and make it into a new journey home without realizing they're already home. There are lots of mistakes you can make on the way. There are lots of mistakes you can make. I guess they could be summarized with a 4-letter word. Mind. M-I-N-D. Mind. So when you're listening, make yourselves comfortable wherever you are. Let your breathing become easy. And let your mind become present to this moment. And let your mind become open, truly open and receptive to what's being said here. Whether you agree or disagree with me is not the point. Far more important than that is being open. Being able to listen without judgment, but also without gullibility. Not immediately clamping down in judgment, but also not just being a passive recipient, accepting everything that's being said without any questioning whatsoever. So what we're talking about is being able to listen intelligently and openly. Yeah? Notice what your response to what is being said. Notice your own response. Don't necessarily act on that response. Just allow it to unravel. Just notice what's happening. And as your mind becomes calm and peaceful, and yet retains its alertness and its intelligence, that is the most receptive state in which these teachings can have an effect. Because in that moment of listening, you're no longer concerned with the me. See, when you're seeking, it's all about me. It's all about the me. But when you're listening, there's an openness there. And in that openness, there's no me. The me might be there, being observed, being experienced, but the attachment to the me is not there. And when the attachment to the me is not there, the me is not there. It's just like a piece of furniture, part of the scenery. So this is listening. This is the art of listening. And it's the same thing as silence or stillness, in which we're not adding onto reality, as it were, but it's a natural process of purification, which things are seen as they are and allowed to come and go. So we're not listening in order to gain something. We're just being open, pure openness, without a motive, And then we're able to listen without the me. And if the me is there, we're just listening to the me. So in this silence, there's an intelligence, there's a receptivity, there's a energy there that's listening, that's sensing, that's responding gently, and not involved, not attached, not getting over involved. So you're not asleep. You're not in a trance. You're awake and alert and receptive and dynamic. And in this process of listening, you're not reinforcing the me. So over time, the me dies. Because it's not given the energy. You're not listening in order to kill the me. If you're listening in order to kill the me, then you're not listening. Then you're not really interested in the me. Then you're not really interested in life. You're just interested in getting somewhere better, where there's no me. If you're trying to get somewhere better, where there's no me, that's just more me. And when you're listening, you can just notice when that happens. And in the noticing, if you've managed to relax your body and nervous system into a place of calm, then when you notice it, it's done. You're free. If you're not relaxed, if you're not calm, sometimes noticing it is not enough because you just get caught up and carried away. That's why it's good to practice calmness, because in the calm moments, if you notice it, you free yourself. Because you're satisfied by the calm. The listening is enough. So are you listening in order to get somewhere? That's okay. Just notice that. Notice that that trying to get somewhere is suffering. That very movement of trying to get somewhere is tension, is stress, is neurosis, is suffering, is me. Don't intellectualize it, just get a sense of it. Just notice how greedy you are. The me is just another word for greed. Always wants more. It's okay. Nothing wrong with being greedy. We're not here to judge. We're not saying greed is bad. We're not here to suppress. We're not here to get rid of the ego. We're here to understand, to learn. Why don't we learn about ourselves? So do you really want to be free? Or do you just want to carry on? Do you just want to carry on seeking, being me? The me is suffering. It's always going to be suffering. It's always going to be wanting more. And it's always going to cause destruction around it. Always. It's always going to be afraid of dying. And it always lives in a false reality. A completely false reality of its own making. And it's scared. And it doesn't know how to step outside that false reality. So it constantly churns up excuses. It throws up excuses and thoughts to keep you in that false reality. Constantly. And it fights tooth and nail to keep you caught in that reality, false reality. It fights tooth and nail to keep you in that false reality. It will tell you all sorts of things. But it's all okay. No matter what you do, the reality will be the reality. And the false reality will be false. What this means is if you let go of everything, it's okay. Because the reality will be here. The only thing you'll lose is the false, the illusion. The breeding ground of this false reality is thought. The breeding ground of this false reality is thought. It's thought that it lays the foundations of the ego, the me. The ego, when I say ego, I just mean the me. The me is made out of thought. Listening is not made out of thought. Listening is another word for awareness, or consciousness, or you. And listening is one with everything. Always. And as we learn the art of listening, it purifies itself. The listening's always there, perfect, whole, complete. It's called the natural state. The listening dissolves everything until all there is just listening. There's no separation, no you, no me, no body, no mind, no world. And you can't describe it. And it's already it's the way things already are. But what I want to get through to you today is how firmly locked into this false reality you may well be. And how deep the ignorance of thought runs. And because of that depth of ignorance, we need a deep silence to penetrate it. Otherwise, we're just observing and thinking and talking and acting from that place of ignorance. Because we've never experienced silence pure enough that's untainted from ignorance. Our entire world is polluted by that me. So everything we do is just me, 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 me. It's only in the depth of silence where there's no thought, or where there's no attachment to the thoughts, deeply. It's just silence, listening to silence, listening to silence. It's silence, exploring silence, exploring silence. It's listening to listening, to listening. It's not listening to thought. It's not listening to the body, listening to the mind. It's when the purification goes deep, 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 deep. And then you'll know what is meant by the word silence or stillness. But it's not this false reality that we're seeing and feeling. And yet, it's not apart from it either. This can't be put into words. There's no right way of saying it or wrong way of saying it. And if you say it right, but you're not actually there, then it's wrong. And if you say it wrong, but you are there, then you're right. You see? So it's not the words. And you can even hear the way I'm saying it, if you're there, if you're not there. So every form of words has problems, because when I say it like that, it makes it sound like some people are there and some people are not there. And it genuinely isn't like that. Now, many of you listening will feel discouraged by what I talked about with the silence. Because for most people I come across, their minds are far from silent. Far, far from silent. And this just seems like an unobtainable thing. Well, don't worry. You're already home. Be happy and well. When you're happy, that is part of the illusion. When you're well, that's part of the illusion. It's a part of the me. See, who's happy? I'm happy. I'm well. I'm unhappy. I'm unwell. I've got it. I've lost it. It's all me, me, me. But when we open ourselves up to happiness and joy and love, that's all in the illusion. That's all in this false reality. But these emotions relax us. And they take away our karmic imprint. I'll explain to you what I mean by that. Because when we feel happy in ourselves, we're less greedy. See, you desire because of suffering. But when you relax and are happy and well, then you're not suffering in that moment. So the desire is reduced. And when you're basically happier and the desire is reduced, your mind becomes stiller. It becomes quieter. So one way into this is not to worry about stilling your mind, but just to focus on allowing love and light and gratitude to come in. And this is the easy way. This is the intuitive way. So we allow our lives to fill up with love and joy and gratitude. And these emotions, these positive emotions, purify us by reducing our desires. We learn to be in love with the moment. We learn to be in love with ourselves, and we learn to derive happiness from ourself and not from the objects of the world. And this purifies us. This reduces our desire. And it's our desire that creates the suffering and the karma, the continued suffering. And it attracts more karma to itself. And that perpetuates suffering. But one way of releasing ourselves from that vicious downward spiral is to allow love and light into our lives. It's still all part of the me dream, the me illusion. And then eventually, after practicing love, you notice it in yourself. Eventually, you don't feel like loving anymore. You just become still. Experiment with this. Encourage yourself to love everything that's happening, just to be in love with life. And after some time, the love burns up all the negativity. It burns up all the desire. The love's like a fire. It's like a raging fire in your heart. It burns up all the desire, and then it burns itself up. And you're left with stillness. And that stillness deepens and deepens and deepens until there's not a trace of the me. And this is penetrating the spiritual heart. And this is when the suffering ends. And you realize this is always the way it was. It's just that you were caught up in your own illusion. So all we're doing is untangling that illusion. The reason we need to practice, if we're already home, why do we need to do anything? It's because we've built up this whole web of deceit and illusion. We just need to untangle it. Practice doesn't bring you closer to yourself. It just removes the veil.